Miner 1, a worthless woman at the poker table. Her secret will take your breath away. Smoke from the chimneys mingled with the evening fog, curling upward like the town's own heartbeat. The streets were quiet except for the occasional creak of wagon wheels or the distant chatter from the saloon at the edge of Main Street. Inside that saloon, the air was thick with cigar smoke and the sharp scent of whiskey. Laughter, the clatter of glasses, and the shuffle of cards filled the dimly lit room. Jack Thompson, a rugged man in his early 30s, pushed open the saloon door and stepped inside. His boots thudded heavily against the wooden floor, announcing his arrival. He carried the dust of the mines on his shoulders, his clothes smeared with the dark earth he had spent the day digging through. His face was tired, his hands rough and calloused, but his eyes sparkled with a mix of determination and quiet mischief. Tonight, he thought, he would try his luck at the poker table. He needed a little thrill, a little chance to change his fortune. The saloon was alive with activity. Miners, gamblers, and a few travelers crowded around tables, shouting over the din. In one corner, a poker game was underway, and Jack could hear the low hum of conversation, punctuated by occasional cheers when someone won a hand. He made his way over, nodding to the players as he approached. "Care to try your luck, stranger?" A burly man with a thick mustache called, grinning. "Cards don't lie, but they sure do surprise." Jack smiled, his eyes scanning the table. The players were rough men, hardened by years of labor and luck that often ran dry. But there was something intoxicating about the risk, the thrill of possibility. He took a deep breath and joined the game, sliding a small stack of coins onto the table. Across from him, a woman sat quietly. Her dark hair fell in loose waves around her shoulders, and her eyes, sharp and alert, scanned the room with cautious curiosity. Leela. That was the name whispered around town, though always with a hint of judgment. She was considered worthless by the gossiping townsfolk, a woman with no family, no wealth, and no obvious means of survival. Some said she had a sharp tongue and a stubborn nature, that she refused to conform to the expectations of women in the town. Others simply avoided her, unsure what to make of her quiet, watchful demeanor. Jack hadn't heard much about her, but he could feel the tension in the room as he took his seat. The other players exchanged wary glances, and whispers began to circulate. There was something unusual about tonight's game, something that made it feel heavier, more charged. The first rounds of poker were tense but quiet. Jack played cautiously, watching the others, gauging their reactions. He wasn't a professional gambler, but years in the mines had taught him patience, observation, and the ability to read subtle signs in people. He noticed the way Leela's fingers hovered over her cards, the careful way she pushed her coins forward, never too eager, never too cautious. There was intelligence in her eyes, a kind of quiet determination that made him respect her instantly. As the game progressed, the stakes grew higher. Coins, watches, and small personal items changed hands, each win and loss intensifying the tension. Jack felt a thrill he hadn't experienced in months, the unpredictable rush of possibility. But no one at the table was prepared for the final hand, the one that would change everything. It started simply enough, with cards being dealt and bets placed. Jack played with steady hands, his mind focused. Leela remained calm, almost unreadable, and the other players were growing anxious. Finally, it came down to a decisive moment. Jack had a strong hand, stronger than he had dared hope, and he pushed his coins forward confidently. Leela matched him, her expression serene, almost challenging. The other players held their breath, sensing the tension. Then, in a move that shocked everyone in the room, the stakes were raised in an unusual way. One of the older gamblers, in a moment of reckless bravado, declared that the next hand would include a prize, a woman from the town, the one whispered about as being worthless. Gasps filled the room. People leaned in, whispering and murmuring. Leela's eyes widened, but she said nothing, her lips pressed tightly together. The room seemed to hold its breath. Jack froze for a moment, unsure how to react. He had heard of such games, of people being foolish enough to wager things beyond coins and property, but he had never imagined he would be involved. The idea was absurd, cruel even, yet the lawless nature of the town allowed for such reckless displays. He glanced at Leela, seeing a flicker of fear, anger, and defiance in her eyes. She was not the timid, helpless woman the rumors suggested. The game continued, and Jack, caught up in the momentum, ended up winning the final hand. The room erupted in cheers, laughter, and some grumbling of disbelief. He had won the hand, and with it, the prize. The reality of it hit him slowly as he looked at Leela. She rose gracefully, her head held high, and approached him with measured steps. Jack felt a strange mix of guilt, awkwardness, and curiosity. Leela's eyes met his, sharp and unyielding, and for the first time he realized there was nothing worthless about her. There was strength, intelligence, and courage in the way she carried herself, despite the humiliation imposed by the town's cruel game. I don't know what to say," Jack muttered, unsure of the proper words. He wasn't a man accustomed to dealing with situations like this, and Leela's calm composure only made him more aware of his own clumsiness. "You don't have to say anything," Leela replied quietly, her voice steady. "I'll do as I must. But don't expect me to be ordinary." Her words carried a weight of warning, a promise that she would not be anyone's pawn, no matter the circumstances. Jack nodded, understanding that she was not a woman to be underestimated. The two of them left the saloon together, stepping into the cool night air. The streets were quiet now, the earlier chatter fading into the distant clatter of wagons and the occasional bark of a dog. Jack could feel the weight of what had just happened pressing down on him. He had won more than a hand of poker. He had won a person whose worth was far beyond the coins and rumors of the town. As they walked side by side, an uneasy silence stretched between them. Jack glanced at Leela, wondering what secrets she carried, what past had brought her to this point. Leela's eyes scanned the darkened streets, alert and thoughtful, and Jack realized that she was already planning her next move, already assessing how she would navigate this unexpected turn of events. The night seemed endless, filled with possibilities and uncertainty. Jack could not have predicted what lay ahead. The rumors of Leela being worthless were clearly false, a shallow judgment by people too quick to gossip and too lazy to see the truth. She was a mystery, a challenge, and perhaps a companion unlike any he had known before. By the time they reached the small boarding house where Jack stayed, he felt a mix of anticipation and apprehension. This night had begun as a gamble with coins and ended as a gamble with destiny. Leela's presence changed everything. He could sense it in the way she moved, the confidence in her steps and the quiet strength in her gaze. As they entered the dimly lit room, Jack offered her a seat and a simple nod. "I suppose we'll have to figure this out together," he said softly. Leela's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile, almost imperceptible, but enough to show that she understood. "Yes," she replied simply, "together." And in that quiet moment, the foundation for an unlikely partnership was laid. Two people from different worlds, forced together by chance and circumstance, now faced the uncertainty of a future neither could predict. Outside, the night stretched on, silent and expectant, as if the mountains themselves were waiting to see what would unfold. Jack sat back in his chair, watching Leela as she quietly examined the small room, and realized that the rumors and whispers of the town had blinded them all to the truth. Leela was far from worthless. She was extraordinary, and he was about to discover just how extraordinary she really was. The first night passed without incident, but the tension of the day lingered in the air. Both Jack and Leela were aware that the town would not forget what had happened, that gossip and judgment would continue to follow them. Yet, in the quiet of the night, a subtle understanding passed between them, a recognition that their meeting was more than chance. It was the beginning of a journey neither had expected, a journey that would reveal secrets, test courage, and ultimately change the lives of both of them forever. As Jack drifted off to sleep, he could still hear the distant echo of the poker table, the laughter of men, and the quiet, unwavering strength of the woman who had walked beside him into the night. And somewhere deep inside, he felt the stirrings of respect, admiration, and perhaps something more, growing quietly but surely. The morning sun rose over the mining town, painting the mountains in soft pink and gold. Jack woke to the sound of roosters crowing and the faint clatter of carts on the dusty streets. He rubbed his tired eyes, still thinking about the events of the previous night. Leela had stayed quietly in the corner of his small room, keeping her distance but watching him carefully. She had not spoken much, and Jack respected that. There was a dignity in the way she carried herself, a quiet strength that made him feel both curious and cautious. Breakfast was simple, stale bread, a bit of cheese, and a tin of coffee, but neither of them seemed hungry. Jack could feel the tension in the air, the unspoken questions that hung between them. He knew the townspeople would be talking, and the rumors about Leela would not disappear quickly. Yet, there was something in her calmness, her ability to face a room full of mocking eyes without flinching, that made Jack feel both protective and intrigued. "I suppose we should figure out what comes next," Jack said finally, breaking the silence. His voice was rough but sincere. Leela looked at him, her dark eyes steady. "Next? The next step is survival, isn't it? Whatever the town thinks, we need to make sure we are safe." Jack nodded slowly. He had expected resistance, perhaps even anger, but her tone was measured, practical. She wasn't looking for pity, nor was she seeking revenge. She simply wanted to endure, and endure with dignity. The morning passed quietly. Jack headed to the mines, his mind only half on the work ahead. He found himself thinking about Leela, wondering about her past, her abilities, and the secrets she might be hiding. At first, he tried to dismiss it, focusing on the rhythm of the pickaxe and the smell of damp earth. But the more he worked, the more he realized that she was not like anyone he had ever met. There was something sharp, almost electric in her presence, and he could feel it pulling him into curiosity and admiration. Meanwhile, Leela wandered the town carefully, avoiding most of the gossiping townsfolk. She understood quickly that the label of worthless was more dangerous than it seemed. People might try to mock her, but some could also take advantage of her. So she kept her head down, observed quietly, and noted who could be trusted and who could not. Yet she also noticed Jack's interactions with others. He was a man of fairness and honesty, not easily swayed by the town's prejudices. That earned a small measure of respect from her. When Jack returned from the mines that evening, exhausted and covered in dust, he found Leela waiting outside his small room. She held a small basket of food, bread, apples, and some cheese. "I thought you might need this," she said softly. Her voice was quiet but strong, carrying a calm authority that made Jack feel a mix of gratitude and surprise. "Thank you," Jack replied, genuinely touched. He noticed the small, careful gestures she made, how she didn't impose but simply offered help. It was a side of her that the town had likely never seen, and he found himself thinking that the gossip had been terribly unfair. As they sat together, sharing the simple meal, the awkwardness of the first night began to fade slightly. Jack attempted small talk, asking about her past in vague terms, but Leela deflected with grace, revealing only small glimpses of her intelligence and resourcefulness. "I've managed on my own for a long time," she said finally. "I know how to take care of myself, even when others think I cannot." Jack nodded, impressed. He realized that every word she spoke carried weight. There was no frivolity, no wasted emotion, only careful thought and quiet determination. He admired her even more, and for the first time he felt a flicker of excitement about the future. Perhaps this unlikely partnership could become something meaningful. Over the next few days, Jack and Leela began to settle into a routine. Jack went to the mines, while Leela wandered the town, learning its rhythms, observing the people, and gathering small jobs to support herself. She mended clothes, ran errands for shopkeepers, and sometimes offered advice or assistance that surprised the townsfolk. Slowly, she began to reveal hints of her hidden talents. A shopkeeper commented once that she had a keen sense of numbers, able to calculate prices and profits in seconds. Another noticed her uncanny ability to read people, understanding motives and intentions almost instinctively. Jack watched these small interactions with growing admiration. The woman the town called worthless was anything but. She was clever, perceptive, and resilient, a force hidden under a quiet exterior. Yet she remained cautious, careful not to draw too much attention. It was clear that Leela had learned the value of discretion early in life, a skill Jack had only begun to understand. One afternoon, Jack returned from the mines to find a small crowd gathered in front of his room. Leela was standing calmly, addressing a few townspeople who had come to challenge or mock her. Jack approached quietly, observing from a distance, and was amazed at how composed she remained. "I do not need anyone's approval to live my life," Leela said firmly, her voice carrying authority. "I am capable of taking care of myself, and I will not be treated as less than any man or woman here." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Some townspeople had expected fear or submission, but instead, they found confidence, intelligence, and courage. Slowly, the whispers began to change. Some expressed respect, while others remained skeptical. But one thing was clear: Leela's presence was beginning to challenge the town's preconceived notions. Jack stepped forward, standing beside her. "She speaks the truth," he said simply, his voice steady. "Do not mistake her quietness for weakness. She is far stronger than most of us." A hush fell over the crowd. Jack's words carried weight, and the townspeople, though reluctant, began to realize that their judgments had been wrong. Leela glanced at Jack briefly, a faint smile crossing her lips. It was a moment of mutual understanding, a recognition that they were no longer just minor and prize, but partners navigating a world that often misunderstood them. As the sun set that evening, painting the town in warm golden hues, Jack and Leela walked together along the dusty streets. The events of the day had brought them closer, though neither spoke much. There was a comfort in silence, a quiet acknowledgement that words were not always necessary. They were learning to understand each other, to trust each other, and to recognize the strength in unlikely companionship. That night, as they settled into the small room, a sudden commotion outside startled them. A group of rowdy men had arrived in town, looking for trouble. Jack instinctively reached for a tool nearby, ready to protect them both. But before he could act, Leela stepped forward calmly, assessing the situation with sharp eyes. She spoke quietly but firmly, her words carrying authority and confidence. To Jack's amazement, the men hesitated, then slowly backed down. Leela had not raised her voice, nor had she acted with aggression, yet her presence and composure had been enough to diffuse the situation. Jack realized that her talents went beyond intelligence and resourcefulness. She had a presence that commanded respect, a strength that went unnoticed by those who judged her lightly. After the men left, Jack looked at her in awe. "How did you do that?" he asked, genuinely impressed. Leela shrugged slightly, a small smile playing at her lips. "Sometimes you don't need force," she said softly. "You just need to know who you are and others will follow." Jack nodded slowly, understanding that the woman he had once thought of as worthless was far from it. She was a force of nature in her own right, and he felt both pride and humility at being by her side. The rumors of the town, the whispers of judgment, all seemed meaningless in comparison to the reality of who Leela truly was. The days turned into weeks, and Jack and Leela continued to grow closer. They shared small moments of laughter, mutual respect, and understanding. Jack began to see beyond the surface. recognizing the depth of her character, the hidden strengths that had carried her through hardships, and the quiet wisdom she possessed. Leela, in turn, began to trust Jack, recognizing his fairness, courage, and unwavering integrity. Though challenges remained, skeptical townsfolk, the harsh life of the mining town, and the uncertainty of their future, both Jack and Leela felt a growing sense of partnership. They were no longer just miner and prize, but companions facing the world together, learning from each other, and discovering that the bonds forged through adversity were stronger than any rumor or judgment. By the time night fell over the town once more, Jack and Leela sat quietly outside, watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. The air was calm, the streets silent, and for the first time both of them felt a sense of possibility, a quiet hope that their journey together could lead to something greater than either had imagined. Jack glanced at Leela and smiled, a rare, genuine smile. "I think I understand now," he said softly. "You're not worthless and you never were. The town just couldn't see what I see." Leela returned his smile, her eyes reflecting the stars above. "And now they might," she said quietly, "but it doesn't matter. What matters is that we know the truth and that we face it together." As they sat side by side, the night stretched on, filled with quiet promise and the unspoken understanding that their lives were no longer defined by gossip or rumor. They had each other, and that was enough to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The next morning, the town awoke slowly, dust swirling in the streets as the sun rose over the distant mountains. Jack sat on the steps outside his small room, running his fingers through his rough hair, thinking about the strange, unexpected changes in his life. The presence of Leela had turned his world upside down, and yet he felt something stirring within him, curiosity, admiration, and even a strange sense of hope. Leela stepped outside quietly, her dark eyes scanning the streets. She seemed alert, as if expecting something or someone. Jack noticed the way she moved, graceful yet purposeful, a combination of poise and strength that seemed unusual for someone the townspeople had called worthless. He watched her carefully, realizing that each action she took carried confidence and thought. "Morning," Jack said, his voice soft but steady. Leela turned to him, a small smile on her lips. "Morning," she replied. "I have something to show you today, something you might find unexpected." Jack raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Unexpected? That sounds interesting." "What is it?" Leela remained silent for a moment, studying his reaction. "It's better if you see for yourself. Come with me." Curiosity and caution battled within Jack. He had learned to trust her instincts, yet he could not predict what she had planned. Together, they walked through the winding streets, past the small shops and familiar faces, toward the outskirts of the town where the houses became sparse and the land more open. As they reached the edge of the town, Leela stopped in front of a modest building, almost hidden by trees and shrubs. Jack looked at it curiously. It appeared simple, almost ordinary, yet something about it felt unusual. "Go on," Leela said softly. "Open the door." Jack pushed it open and stepped inside. The room was modest but filled with surprising items. Books stacked neatly along the walls, charts and diagrams pinned to the boards, and carefully organized tools and materials. His eyes widened. This is impressive," Jack said, his voice filled with awe. I didn't expect this at all." Leela smiled faintly. "I told you, Jack, there is more to me than the town believes. I've had to survive on my own for many years, and I learned skills that no one here would ever expect a woman to have. People judge too quickly, but I've always known who I am." Jack stepped closer, examining the charts and books. He realized that Leela had knowledge far beyond what he could imagine. There were plans for small inventions, notes on the land, and even records of trade and business practices. She was organized, intelligent, and resourceful, a person capable of navigating life with skill and determination. "You've done all this by yourself?" Jack asked, genuinely impressed. Leela nodded. "Yes, I had no family to rely on, no one to support me. I learned to plan, to observe, to prepare. Every skill I have was earned. Every advantage I hold comes from hard work and careful thought. Jack felt a mix of admiration and surprise. The rumors of the town had been cruel and completely false. Leela was far from worthless. She was extraordinary, capable of things that could change her life and the lives of those around her. Over the next few days, Leela began to share more of her knowledge with Jack. She taught him small ways to improve his work in the mines, tips on managing money, and methods to anticipate risks in both life and business. Jack absorbed everything eagerly, realizing that the skills she offered could make a difference not only for himself, but for the entire town. Yet, there was more to her abilities than mere intelligence. One evening, as they walked along the outskirts of the town, a sudden commotion caught their attention. A group of bandits had come through, threatening travelers and stealing supplies. Jack instinctively moved forward, ready to defend them, but Leela stepped beside him, her movements calm and precise. With a few firm words and quick gestures, she guided the frightened travelers to safety, while Jack helped confront the bandits. To Jack's astonishment, Leela's confidence and knowledge of strategy gave them a clear advantage. The bandits were confused, outmaneuvered, and eventually fled, leaving the town's outskirts safe once more. "That was incredible," Jack said afterward, still catching his breath. "I didn't know you could do that." Leela shook her head, her expression calm. "It's not about fighting. It's about understanding people, knowing how they think, and acting with purpose. Strength comes in many forms, Jack. Not all of it is physical." Jack nodded slowly, realizing the truth in her words. Leela's strength was not just in skill or knowledge, but in the quiet confidence and awareness she carried. She had survived alone for years, overcoming challenges the town could never imagine. And now, by her side, he felt stronger and more capable as well. As the days passed, Leela's secret began to influence life in the town. She helped solve disputes among townsfolk, advised shopkeepers on improving their businesses, and quietly improved the safety and efficiency of daily life. People began to notice the changes, though few understood where they came from. Jack, meanwhile, grew more certain of his feelings. He had seen Leela's intelligence, courage, and kindness, and he respected her more than anyone he had ever met. There was a connection between them that went beyond circumstance, a bond built on trust, admiration, and growing friendship. He began to realize that winning her at the poker table had been the start of something far greater than luck. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jack and Leela sat by a small fire outside his room. The air was cool, the sky painted in shades of purple and gold. Leela looked at him thoughtfully. "Jack," she said softly, "there is more to tell you about myself. Things I have kept hidden for years. It is time you know the truth." Jack's heart beat faster. He had sensed there was more to her, but hearing her say it aloud brought a mix of anticipation and nerves. "I'm listening," he said carefully. Leela took a deep breath. "I was not always alone. I had a family once, people of means and influence. But circumstances changed. Loss, betrayal, and misfortune left me with nothing. I had to disappear, to survive on my own, without anyone to protect me or guide me. I learned to rely only on myself, to plan, to act, and to understand the world in ways most people never do." Jack listened intently, absorbing every word. He realized that the rumors of her being worthless were not only wrong, they were cruel. Leela had survived unimaginable hardships and had emerged stronger, wiser, and more capable than anyone around her. You've been through so much," Jack said finally, his voice full of respect. "And yet you're here, helping others, teaching me, protecting the town. You're amazing, Leela. I see it now." Leela's lips curved into a small, almost shy smile. "I never wanted recognition. I only wanted to live, to survive, and to use what I have learned to make a difference." People can call me what they like. That does not change who I am. Jack reached out, placing a hand on hers. I don't care what people say. I see the truth and I respect it in you. For a moment, the firelight danced across their faces, casting long shadows and highlighting the connection between them. There was an understanding, a mutual recognition that they had both been tested by life and had emerged stronger. They were no longer just minor and prize, but partners, allies, and perhaps something more. Over the following weeks, Leela continued to reveal her skills in small but meaningful ways. She taught Jack how to anticipate changes in the market for the town's supplies, how to negotiate fairly, and even how to spot dishonesty in people's words and actions. Slowly, the townsfolk began to see her in a new light. Rumors and whispers shifted from mockery to curiosity, and some even began to show respect for her abilities. Jack felt a growing sense of pride, not in himself, but in Leela. He realized that her strength, intelligence, and courage were qualities that no game of chance, no rumor, and no judgment could ever diminish. She was remarkable, and he was lucky to have her by his side. One evening, as the town settled into quiet, Jack and Leela walked along the outskirts again, reflecting on the changes that had taken place. Leela looked out toward the mountains, her expression thoughtful. Jack, she said softly, the town will continue to judge and gossip. That is how people are, but I am not afraid anymore. I know who I am and I know what I can do, and with you by my side I feel even stronger. Jack smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest. And I feel the same way. Whatever comes next, we will face it together. In that moment, under the fading light of the sunset, both of them understood that their lives had been forever changed. Leela's secret, her intelligence, courage, and resilience, was no longer hidden. It was a truth that would shape their future, challenge the town's misconceptions, and forge a bond between them stronger than any rumor or judgment. And as night fell, with stars beginning to sparkle across the sky, Jack realized something profound. Winning Leela at the poker table had not been about luck. It had been fate. And fate, he now understood, had brought him someone extraordinary, a woman whose worth was beyond measure and whose secrets would change everything. The town was unusually quiet that morning, almost as if it sensed the tension that was about to unfold. Jack Thompson rose early, the smell of dust and earth clinging to his clothes from another long night of thinking about the future. Leela was already awake, moving quietly around their small room, her dark eyes thoughtful and alert. There was a calm determination about her that Jack had come to admire and depend on. I think today will be important, Leela said softly, breaking the silence. Something is coming. I can feel it. Jack raised an eyebrow, a little amused and a little concerned. You're sure about that? I am, she replied, her voice steady. We've done well so far, but some things cannot stay hidden forever. People notice more than we think. Jack didn't ask more. He had learned that when Leela spoke with that tone, it was better to listen. He nodded and followed her outside. The streets of the town were already stirring with activity. Shopkeepers swept the front of their stores, miners carried baskets of coal, and children ran along the dusty streets, laughing and shouting. But amid the ordinary life, there was an undercurrent of tension. Some townsfolk still whispered about Leela, though their words had lost the cruelty of before. Curiosity had replaced mockery, and caution had replaced judgment. Leela led Jack toward the edge of town where the hills met the open plains. We need to meet someone, she explained. Someone from my past. They have come to town and they may not be friendly. Jack felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Leela's past had been mostly hidden, a collection of hints and small stories she had shared gradually. Now it seemed the past had caught up with her. Are you sure you want to do this? He asked carefully. I have no choice, she said. If I don't face this, it could harm not only me but the town as well, and I will not allow that. As they climbed the small hill overlooking the town, they saw a group of men approaching. They were clearly not travelers seeking food or work. Their faces were stern, their movements purposeful, and there was an air of authority and threat about them. Jack recognized the signs of trouble immediately, and he moved instinctively to Leela's side. Leela's eyes narrowed, her posture shifting from calm observation to quiet readiness. "Stay close," she whispered to Jack. "Watch and learn. Some battles are won with thought, not force." The men entered the town center, speaking to shopkeepers and townsfolk in low but commanding voices. It didn't take long for the rumors to spread. These men were looking for someone, a woman with knowledge, skill, and secrets that could benefit them or ruin them. Jack's heart sank as he realized the danger Leela faced. Leela stepped forward, moving with confidence and precision. She approached the group calmly, her eyes sharp and unwavering. "I suppose you've come for me," she said, her voice steady. "What do you want?" The leader, a tall man with a rough face and piercing eyes, smirked. "We've heard about you, Leela. People say you're clever, resourceful, but clever women can be dangerous if left unchecked. We have business to discuss and you will comply." Leela's lips curved into a small, controlled smile. "I will not be threatened," she said quietly. "If you want to discuss business, we do it fairly. Otherwise, leave now before you make a mistake." The leader's smirk faltered slightly. He had expected fear, hesitation, or at least submission. Instead, he found a woman calm, confident, and unafraid. Jack could feel the tension building around them, the townsfolk watching from windows and doorways, holding their breath. "I see you've learned some tricks," the man said cautiously. "But do not underestimate us. We are not ordinary men." Leela's eyes narrowed. "And I am not an ordinary woman. You will find that out soon enough." Jack stayed close, ready to act if necessary. He had seen Leela handle challenges before, but there was something different about this confrontation. The stakes were higher, the danger more real, and the consequences could affect more than just them. The men made a move, reaching for their weapons, but Leela acted first. With a combination of quick thinking and strategy, she used the environment to her advantage. She guided townsfolk to safety, used obstacles to slow the men's movements, and anticipated their actions before they could act. Jack followed her lead, assisting where he could, and together they managed to gain the upper hand. The confrontation did not last long, but it left a lasting impression. The men, realizing they were outmatched not by brute strength but by intelligence and strategy, retreated. The townsfolk, who had been watching silently, erupted in whispers of awe and admiration. Leela had not only defended herself but also protected the town, proving that her abilities were extraordinary. Jack looked at her with admiration. "I can't believe what I just saw," he said. "You handled that perfectly." Leela shook her head, her expression calm but resolute. "It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. That is sometimes all we need, enough to survive, enough to protect those we care about." The events of the day spread quickly through the town. Where there had once been whispers of doubt and mockery, there was now respect and even cautious admiration. People began to see Leela for who she truly was, intelligent, resourceful, and courageous. Jack felt a deep sense of pride, not for himself but for her. She had proven the truth of her character to everyone and especially to him. That evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in deep orange and purple, Jack and Leela sat quietly outside, reflecting on the day. The tension had passed, but the knowledge of what could have happened lingered in their minds. "You were amazing today," Jack said softly. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Leela smiled faintly, a small warmth in her eyes. "You helped too, Jack. We make a good team. But remember, strength is not always in fighting. It is in knowing what to do, when to act, and how to think ahead." Jack nodded, understanding the truth in her words. He realized that Leela's abilities went far beyond intelligence or strategy. She had courage, wisdom, and a sense of purpose that made her extraordinary. And he felt fortunate to be by her side, learning and growing with her. In the days that followed, Life in the town began to return to a sense of normalcy, though the events of that confrontation left a lasting mark. Leela continued to work quietly, improving the town in ways that went unnoticed by most but appreciated by those who paid attention. Jack supported her, learning from her methods and gaining confidence in his own abilities. Together, they began to plan for the future. Leela shared more of her knowledge, teaching Jack about strategy, observation, and leadership. He taught her about the mines, the work of the town, and the daily struggles of its people. Their bond grew stronger, built on mutual respect, trust, and the shared experience of facing danger together. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Leela spoke quietly. "Jack, there will always be challenges. People will judge, misunderstand, and sometimes act out of fear or envy. But we have learned something important. We are stronger together, and that makes all the difference." Jack nodded, feeling a sense of certainty he had never known before. "I know, and I will stand by you no matter what comes next." Leela reached out and placed her hand over his. "And I will stand by you. We face this together, Jack, always together." The night settled over the town, calm and peaceful, but both of them knew that challenges would come again. They were ready, not just because of strength or skill, but because of trust, understanding, and the bond they had built. Leela's past had tested her, the present had strengthened her, and the future, though uncertain, was something they would face together. And as the stars appeared one by one in the clear night sky, Jack realized that the woman he had once thought of as worthless had become the most extraordinary person in his life. She had shown courage, wisdom, and strength beyond measure, and he knew that their journey was far from over. Whatever lay ahead, he would face it with her by his side, and together there was nothing they could not overcome. The morning sun rose over the quiet town, painting the streets in gold and soft shadows. Jack Thompson stirred from his sleep, feeling a strange sense of anticipation. Today was not like other days. He could sense it in the air, in the stillness of the town, and in the quiet confidence that Leela carried with her as she moved about their small room. "Good morning," Jack said, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. "Morning," Leela replied calmly. Her dark eyes, clear and sharp, reflected determination. "Today will show everyone the truth, not just about me, but about what people are capable of when they are judged unfairly." Jack nodded slowly. He had learned to trust her instincts. Leela had faced challenges before, and she had always emerged stronger. Today, he knew, would be no different, but the stakes felt higher. They stepped outside together, walking through the quiet streets of the town. The townsfolk were beginning to stir, curious and cautious, for news of Leela's recent actions had spread quickly. Many had begun to whisper, unsure what to believe. Some had seen her courage, her intelligence, and her skill, but the full truth had yet to be revealed. Leela led Jack to the town square where a small crowd had gathered. The tension was palpable, a mix of anticipation and skepticism. People who had once whispered about her being worthless now watched with curiosity, unsure what to expect. Some glanced at Jack, clearly aware that he had stood by her side through the recent challenges. Leela stepped forward, her posture calm and commanding. "People of this town," she began, her voice clear and steady, "I know there have been many rumors about me. Some have called me worthless, foolish, or weak. But today I will show you the truth. I am not defined by your words, your judgments, or your assumptions. I am defined by what I have learned, what I have done, and what I can do to help all of you." The crowd murmured, a mixture of surprise, doubt, and curiosity. Jack could see the doubt in their eyes, but he could also sense that many were beginning to wonder just what Leela was capable of. She raised her hand slightly, signaling Jack to follow her. Together, they revealed a plan that had been carefully prepared over the past weeks. Leela had mapped out ways to improve the town's safety, its economy, and the daily lives of its people. She presented strategies for managing supplies, improving the mines, and even teaching townsfolk skills that would help them survive more efficiently. Jack watched as the townspeople's expressions changed. Skepticism gave way to admiration, and whispers of doubt turned into words of encouragement. Leela's knowledge and preparation were undeniable. She had not only survived hardship, but had used her skills to benefit the entire town. "This is remarkable," a shopkeeper said, stepping forward. "I never imagined anyone could plan and organize like this. You've thought of everything." Leela nodded, acknowledging the praise without arrogance. "I have learned to observe, to think, and to act carefully. These skills are not secrets, they are lessons from life. And now I want to use them to help all of you." Jack felt a swell of pride. He had seen Leela in action before, but seeing the town recognize her abilities was deeply satisfying. The woman they had called worthless was now standing tall, admired, and respected, not because she demanded it, but because she had earned it through her courage, intelligence, and dedication. As the day went on, Leela continued to demonstrate her skills. She showed the townsfolk ways to improve the mine's efficiency, shared knowledge about trade and planning, and taught problem-solving methods that many had never considered. Jack assisted her, learning and growing alongside her. Together they became a team, complementing each other's strengths. By afternoon, the crowd had grown larger, including townsfolk who had once doubted her. They watched as Leela solved problems, gave advice, and calmly handled any challenge that arose. Jack realized that her abilities went far beyond what he had imagined. She had not only survived hardship but had mastered it, turning her experience into a tool for success and leadership. The final moment came when a group of merchants arrived from a nearby town, bringing goods and news of trade opportunities. They were impressed by Leela's knowledge, her planning, and her calm authority. They offered her a position as an advisor and trusted partner in their trade network, recognizing that her skills were rare and invaluable. Jack looked at her with amazement. "I can't believe this," he whispered. "People are actually listening to you. They respect you." Leela smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting both humility and pride. "It's not about them listening. It's about showing what I can do. People may judge, but actions speak louder than words." By evening, the town square was quiet again, the sun setting in a blaze of orange and pink. Jack and Leela sat together on a wooden bench, watching the shadows stretch across the streets. The events of the day had been extraordinary. The town had seen the truth, and Leela's secret, the depth of her intelligence, courage, and resourcefulness, was fully revealed. "You've done more than I ever imagined," Jack said softly. "You've changed this town, Leela. You've changed how people see you and how I see the world." Leela looked at him, her eyes steady and warm. "And you've been with me every step of the way. That matters too, Jack. I could not have done this alone. It is not just skill or knowledge, it is trust, partnership, and courage. Together we are stronger." Jack reached out, taking her hand in his. "I've learned that. I've learned so much from you. You're incredible, Leela. And I don't just respect you, I admire you, more than words can say." For the first time, a quiet understanding passed between them. The bond they had formed through challenges, danger, and shared experiences had grown into something deeper. It was not just friendship, it was trust, respect, and the beginnings of love. As night fell, lanterns were lit across the town. The townsfolk moved quietly, their conversations now filled with admiration for the woman they had once dismissed. They had witnessed courage, wisdom, and strength, and they had been changed by it. Leela's reputation had shifted completely. No longer worthless, she was now a figure of respect, someone whose talents and intelligence could not be ignored. Jack and Leela returned to their small room, tired but filled with a sense of accomplishment. The events of the day had not only changed the town, but had also solidified their bond. They had faced challenges together, overcome danger, and shown the world who Leela truly was. "I never imagined it would come to this," Jack said, settling beside her. "I did," Leela replied, a small smile on her lips. I always knew my skills and my courage would be recognized one day. I only needed the right moment and the right person by my side." Jack smiled, understanding the depth of her words. "And I'm glad I was here for it. I've learned more from you than I ever thought possible." They sat quietly for a moment, watching the stars appear one by one in the clear night sky. The town was calm, peaceful, and safe. The challenges had been met, the secrets revealed, and the truth acknowledged. Leela had transformed the town's perception of her, and in doing so had also transformed the lives of everyone who witnessed her courage. "I suppose this is just the beginning," Jack said finally. "Yes," Leela agreed. "Life will continue to bring challenges, but we are ready. We have learned, we have grown, and we have each other. That is enough to face whatever comes next." Jack nodded, feeling a deep sense of peace. The woman who had once been called worthless had shown the world her worth, her talent, and her courage. And in the process, she had become someone he could not only admire but rely on, trust, and care for deeply. As they sat together under the stars, hand in hand, they both knew that their lives had been forever changed. The journey that began with a chance game of poker had led to adventure, danger, discovery, and triumph. And now, standing together, they were ready to face the future, not as minor and prize, but as partners, equals, and perhaps, in time, as something more. The town, once quick to judge and slow to understand, had seen the truth. And the woman who had been underestimated, misunderstood, and dismissed had proven beyond doubt that her worth was immeasurable. Jack looked at Leela, his heart full of admiration and respect. "You've done it," he said softly. "You've shown everyone who you truly are." Leela smiled, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "We've done it," she replied, "together." And in that quiet moment, with the night stretching endlessly above them, both of them understood that the challenges they had faced, the secrets revealed, and the victories earned had created a bond that would endure. No rumor, no judgment, and no obstacle could ever diminish the courage, intelligence, and heart of the woman who had once been called worthless. Together, they had triumphed. Together, they had discovered the power of trust, respect, and partnership. And together, they would face whatever the future held, knowing that no matter what came next, they had each other, and that was more than enough.